thought I had this recording, sorry. Okay, now we are recording, so we missed that opening. But I wanted to share that with everyone because it was such a beautiful performance by Jeff. Now we're going to move to, well, let's do this. After the show today, you can go to DallasJazzPianoSociety.com, and let me share that. And at DallasJazzPianoSociety.com, this is the home page. Click on Jazz Explained, and this has an interview that Gabriel Evans did. And John Murphy, if you're out there, I know this was an assignment for a class, but if you can all, after this, because we have so many videos and stories, I had thought about reading through this interview and reading the story of Lucille, his mother's life. I'm going to let all of you do that later on, but Jeff's interview is up here on our website. Just the amazing story of Lucille's life. I saw Lucille many times and got to know her, and I knew about the pottery, but I didn't know the depth of things she was involved with throughout her life. It was truly amazing. I wish I knew that when she was around so I could have asked her more about that. The third thing we have there is the video that Steve Weinbard did on Wednesday night, about an hour-long video that was just great. And not everybody saw that. So what I'd like to start with here, I found an interview that somebody did that was just up on SoundCloud. Let me open that up. And we will take a listen to this. And that sound is selected.
What do you think is the feeling towards American jazz musicians in Europe and South America? We went over that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it's good, and I actually think it's getting better. It's good and it's getting better, which bodes well for the new cats coming up.
Yeah.
But I think always be true to your art. Be open to new influences. Play with as many people as you possibly can. Some will be great, some will be friggin' blown away, and it'll be life-changing. But my dad, who was a wonderful potter, used to say, look, I don't always get a masterpiece when I make pots, but every now and then I do. But I had to go through the 100 pots before I got to the master.
Went on to the next piece. That was just a short clip, but I thought it was really beautiful, expressing a lot of different things about Jeff. One thing about Jeff was he liked people, and he liked playing music with anyone, no matter the level they were at. He was just glad to make music with anyone. And it sounds like that came from Lucille and his dad also. Then what I want to move to before we start talking more with Ryan, Carolyn, and Sergio is a song that I'd seen Jeff sharing a lot here for a while. A song he wrote for Starbucks that features Tatiana Mayfield on vocals, and he had been sharing that a lot during the quarantine time, and I had watched it. He was hoping to connect with Starbucks and get them to use this for a commercial, but it's a great song. That's still selected.
Walk into a Starbucks, feeling all laid back. You grab a cappuccino, put a muffin in the sack. You love your Starbucks. It's the place you want to be. Ain't nothing in the world so fine, sipping coffee or a tea. Grab a local paper and find a cozy chair. It all feels so familiar, like you know everybody there. You love your Starbucks. It's the place you want to be. Ain't nothing in the world so fine as sipping coffee or tea. Cruising to the airport, you're looking for your gate. You find yourself a Starbucks and appreciate the way you love your Starbucks. It's the place you want to be. Ain't nothing in the world so fine as sipping coffee or tea. Starbucks is your place. Grab a double latte, put a smile upon your face. You love your Starbucks. It's the place you wanna be. Ain't nothing in the world so fine as sipping coffee or tea. There's a Starbucks down the highway. Let's stop and get a drink. The coffee's always better, more convenient than you think. You love your Starbucks. It's the place you want to be. Ain't nothing in the world so fine as sipping coffee or tea.
At the end there, it says it goes all the way back to 2011, and maybe Lucille helped him with some of the lyrics or helped him with the concept as he went through.
It's pretty cool.
That is great. Hey, and then before we get into, one last thing before we get into talking with our other guests, normally on these events for Dallas Jazz Piano Society and on our concerts, we take donations for our Keys for Kids Foundation. Today we're actually taking all donations are going to go to Jeff's family. And let me share this with all of you. So any donations you'd like to give tonight or in the future week, let me share this. So search Dallas Jazz Piano Society at Gmail on PayPal, which isn't there. Or if you need to pay or like to pay a different way than PayPal, email that address, DallasJazzPianoSociety at gmail.com. Our treasurer, Judy, will get that and she can help you donate in whichever way you'd like to do. And we're going to get all of those donations to his family once those all come in. And I know we've already received some this afternoon.
That's good.
All right, so Ryan, let's talk about Jeff as a teacher and a mentor. Now, would you like to talk first, or do you want to watch the duo video with Lynn? How would you like to proceed?
It really, either way, it's up to you, man. If you want to
Okay.
play the video, that's fine.
Okay. Let's go over to the list. This is a great video. Lynn shared this with me. There was a copy that wasn't as good as this video, but this is great sound, and it's a great look at Jeff and Jeff interacting with another amazing bass player.
I'm going to jump in before you hit play, if you'd pause it for a second.
Yes, please.
This is a part of the University of North Texas Jazz Double Bass Workshop. Jeff was a frequent collaborator with me on those workshops. He also was a frequent guest on the UNT combo workshops. And the reason why I shared this is because it shows in the beginning Jeffrey's wonderful explanation of what we're about to do. He was a great teacher, a great bass player, and had one of the best laughs in the business. And you will hear that all of those things on this one. And I also share the intro because we talked about it long before we were about to play it, and you'll hear me comment on, thank you for reinforcing.
Yeah.
Forgot what we talked about. So, thanks for playing this one.
Thanks for sharing it, Lynn, and thanks for the intro.
All right, and I look forward to hearing Ryan. Thanks, bye.
Let's reset it.
Yeah, reset it and share
Yeah.
your screen with the audio and the video.
Oh, it is. I think it's there.
Jumped in, it interfered with it.
No, yeah, the sound on this was softer. I noticed that earlier today.
Check the Zoom settings, and you might be able to raise the volume within the within the settings on the YouTube player.
Let me share and see. Let me minimize this for a bit. Yeah, all the volumes are all the way up.
How about that output volume?
Well, this is my microphone.
On this, where it says a speaker?
Yeah, speakers all the way up.
There it goes. Sounds a little better now, I think.
How about on the YouTube player? The speaker.
That is all the way up.
Okay. Well, we'll do the best we can. Thanks. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's sharing your computer.
No, doesn't. There we go.
That was great. Thanks for sharing that, Lynn. Ryan,
My pleasure.
Oh,
Thank you.
you want to talk about Jeff as a teacher? Talk about the university you've shared? Whatever
yeah.
you'd like to do from here.
Unmute. There we go.
There
Sorry,
you go.
I got muted for a second. Well, I certainly have a lot to say, so I'll do my very best to be relatively organized and not too long-winded. But when Lynn posted that the other day, I commented that that's everything I know about the bass in one video.
Oop, sorry.
Nope.
Yep, it's off. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's everything I know right there about the bass between those two guys. And, I mean, I guess when I started studying with Jeff, it was my very first semester at UNT, and I had been playing double bass for about 2 months. And I got a teacher in Austin right after I graduated high school, and then he basically told me how to hold the bow, and then I showed up to North Texas. And I got randomly assigned Jeff as my private teacher for classical bass. And I got real lucky there. Because Jeff, of course, is a jazz guy, but he was studying classical music at that time. And it was immediately striking to me that he had this kind of, I guess the best way I could say it is like a pan-musical attitude and perspective, that he really didn't care about the divisions between types of music or or even instruments or anything, you know. It was also striking in that little interview that you played that he didn't say some of the musicians you're going to play with are great and some of them aren't so great. He said some of them are great and some of them are going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
which really encapsulates his kind of overwhelming positivity
Yeah.
about people. And he was just as much interested in learning from me as I was from him. And so sometimes half the lesson I would just do something. We'd be talking about something and I'd play something and he'd just go, wait, what was that? What was that? Hang on, how did you do that? And he'd take the bass and he'd show me how, what was the fingering on that, you know? And so it was such a collaborative process, you know? But there's just so much to say. I mean, just a couple of little anecdotes that kind of encapsulate him. We spent the better part of one lesson analyzing a movement of a Bach cello suite for changes. And I somewhere I still have that sheet where we've got, you know, Roman numerals and, oh, that's a D7 flat 9 and it's Bach, you know? And oh, well, I think that would work over a 2-5. And you go, let's see if we can play that on a blues. You know? And so it was classical lessons, but he was always pushing me to do things in a different way. And, you know, okay, well, all the bass players, we're going to do this exercise at an A major, but you're going to do it on the altered scale, or you're going to do it on the half-whole diminished scale because you're a jazz guy. And I just, okay, you know, and that was just so inspiring, you know. And I guess I should add that at the same time that he was my teacher, he was also playing bass in the 1 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So I got to hear him play all the time. And he's just a creative force, you know. He was such an overwhelmingly, I guess, exploratory musician. He was always trying new things. He was always interested in something else. Yeah, I guess that's most of what I have to say about the teaching. And of course, I kept in touch with Jeff right after I studied 2 years with him, 4 semesters, and then of course I started to study with Len Seaton. And that year, that was 2005, he got this job in Quito, Ecuador. I didn't talk to him much during that time, but when he came back to Texas, of course, you know, we reconnected. And just about every time I'd talk to him, he'd mention some story about Ecuador, and at the end of the story, he'd go, you know, man, that would be a really good gig for you. And I, you know, okay, whatever, Jeff, cool. And then one morning, I believe it was, you know, around December 7th, December 8th, something like that, in 2011, he called me up in the morning and he said, hey, man, so you remember that school I used to work at in Ecuador? So they called me and they asked me if I could come teach again. But I really can't do it, you know, for the money that they're offering me. It's not worth it. But I gave them your number. Maybe they're going to call you. I don't know. And I said, well, okay. I got an email about an hour and a half later.
Wow.
And they offered me the gig on the spot. I didn't send a resume. I didn't send anything. I didn't do anything. I got an email from the dean, and 1 month later, I was on a plane to Quito. Wow. And that
Ryan,
point, yeah, go ahead.
where are you talking to us from?
I am speaking to you from the great city of Quito, Ecuador.
There you go.
So, you know, I mean, he didn't tell me much about it. You know, we talked a little bit. He'd tell stories. You know, I did this. I went to this place. I played with these guys. You know, and then all of a sudden, I got appointed for 1 semester. It was a 1 semester job, and that was January of 2012, and we're sitting here, and it's July of 2020, and I'm still here. And as we were chatting, you know, with Mike before we got started, you know, Ecuador is a very small country, and as it turns out, a lot of my colleagues now, they went to school at the university. It's the Universidad San Francisco de Quito. They went to school and studied here, and then went off to get their master's in the U.S. or somewhere else, and then they came back to teach. So as it turns out, a large majority of my colleagues were actually Jeff's students.
Amazing.
You know, whether that was in, he taught a bunch of ensembles. He taught most of the jazz ensembles, bebop and post-bop, modal jazz. He taught ear training, and that's, I think, where I've heard most of the stories about Jeff from people here, that they said, you know, man, I couldn't hear anything until I had class with Jeff. And you know, you hear people say things like, he changed the whole way I think about music, which is a pretty intense thing to say, you know? And I've heard that sentence so many times. And it's very interesting, you know, Facebook, you see who you're connected with. And I feel kind of between two worlds, because last week I saw the outpouring of love, of course, from the Texas and the North Texas community. And then I saw this outpouring of love for Jeff from this community, and all in Spanish. Oh, wow. And that's when it really hit me. I mean, it was really an emotional punch in the face, because I realized that I'm kind of I'm somehow, I don't know how, but somehow I'm intertwined in Jeff's whole universe, you know? And I didn't do any of it, you know? And that's why when I posted on Facebook the other day, it was like, everything that's happened to me in the last 17 years, I can trace it all back to Jeffrey Eckels. It's a straight line. It's a straight line, man, because I wouldn't be the musician that I am without his guidance and mentorship and his style of thinking and teaching and friendship. And then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I don't know what I'd be doing if he hadn't made that phone call, you know? And so, you know, I wish I had thanked him more for it, because I really, really do owe it all to Jeff.
Wow.
Nice.
That's great. Hey, we're going to move on to talk about Jeff playing with pianists and vocalists, but Sergio, do you want to say anything on the mentorship side before we move to that, or just talk about playing with him as a pianist? You're still muted, Sergio.
Sorry. Yes, I just wanted to say that I was just listening to Ryan, and I just feel, you know, that Jeff somehow did the same for me. So I kind of can talk about Jeff from both perspectives. You know, in the recent years, being a colleague and a great, you know, musician that I love to work with. But at the beginning, when I got to UNT in 2008, Jeff really helped me just to introduce myself into the community. So when Ryan was talking, I just, you know, it's, you know, it's very touching. But Jeff, you know, he would come to our house. I used to live with three more Spaniards that came. We all came to UNT together, and Jeff would just come to our house, and sometimes he would bring a bottle of wine, or sometimes he would just share our wine with us. But he would come to our house and just talk to us, practice his Spanish, and he was just so interested always in learning that I think he saw us as an opportunity to learn about something new for him, right? But at the same time, he just helped us, you know, to get into the community, and we were very intimidated by the level of the students at UNT. And as Ryan said, and also as Jeff said in the interview, he always played with everybody, no matter what level. And he says, and he was very sincere when he said that you're gonna play with, you have to play with as many people as you can, and you're gonna learn from all of them. And Jeff taught us a lot, and also learned some stuff, some music from Spain that he was always curious about. But he was just so generous with us, and I have seen him continuing doing that. So we used to play a lot in the past years at Steve's Wine Bar, and one of the things that Jeff always did, and I think it's very important, is that he invited people to play with us. In some cases it was, you know, UNT faculty or professionals, but he made sure that he was inviting some of the younger musicians as well. And he was not at UNT at the moment, so he didn't have a very clear notion of who is who, but he would just ask Brad, Lily, or Quincy, is this your student? Yeah, what's his name? Okay, and then Jeff would go himself and ask them to play and encourage them to play. And he did that with a lot of my students at UNT, and I really appreciate that too. I just wanted to share something, a couple of personal stories that talk about, you know, the way he approached music. You know, Ryan was just talking about, you know, how Jeff would look at all this classical music and try to make the connection with jazz and say, let's play this on the blues. I have a funny story too. He was always very curious about what the other musicians were doing. So for example, with other people he plays with, like Dan or anybody else, you know, I'm sure that we all have stories about this. I know there are so many pianists and vocalists here that play with him, but he always wanted to know what you were doing. And sometimes I was telling him, hey Jeff, it's nice also to, you know, let's keep some mystery as well, you know. and he would be, no, I want to know what that is. And I remember one time we were playing something in his house. He had this piano that I loved, and we were just playing some duos, and I played an Art Tatum run, and he stopped, and we were in the middle of a song, and he stopped, and he said, wait, I have heard you doing that before, and I want to know what that is. And I go, Jeff, but I don't think that's very relevant. That's not a bass thing, right? This is just a pianistic figure. And he said, well, not anymore. And he sure learned it, and he started playing that in his solos.
Yeah.
You know?
And sometimes it would be right in the middle of a song playing.
Yeah.
He's like, what was that? Tell me what...
Sorry, can I jump in really quick on that?
I don't mind saying something.
Oh, go ahead, William.
To that very specific point, and I have more to say that I don't necessarily need to say, but to that very specific point, he was my main bass player with my original stuff, and I have a lot to say about that. And again, I don't need to say it all, but that one little point, and one of our rehearsals, he said, you know the opening line to that Seraphine's Journey that you wrote? I've been using that 4-note thing in my solos, like all over the place. I love that line. It was like, and it was so funny because when we rehearsed the song, inevitably there'd be a part in the melody where he had to like go up and play the melody. And sometimes I'd have to say, Jeffrey, have you ever thought of becoming a guitar player? And Jeffrey would say, wow, someone else said that to me once, because he could do the whole thing. He could play the melody, he could play the harmony, he could play it all. So I had to sort of like, but at the same time, at this certain point in Seraphine's journey down at the bottom of the first page, he plays that one little phrase, and when he plays, it was his idea, and when he doubles the melody just right there, or right when he comes in halfway into the first page, it just really helps the song. It's like he was, and what others have been saying, he was always thinking, and that's what we had in common. We were both like explorers, continually exploring, and that's what I treasured about him.
Hey, William, and that's great you brought that up. I'll get back to you because I think that's one of the videos I have in the playlist that I was planning on playing. I've got a couple of videos by Steven, so we'll bring you up to talk about, pick one of those. And Rosanna was here. I've got a great video with Rosanna. And if she's still here at that point, we'll let her talk about that. So we'll get back to you guys talking more about those pieces. But Carolyn, talk about from the vocalist side, and you're performing and recording with Jeff that goes back to like 2008.
Or even, now I'm trying to remember, did I know Ryan before I knew Jeff? Or was it the other way around? I'm like totally confused now. But Jeff, I've been doing this full-time now for 12 years. I can't believe it. And Jeff was very much a part of my musical journey, especially early on. I mean, we played all kinds of gigs, you name it. And I'm going to give you a memory first because I was going to save this till the end, but I think I'm going to set it up now. Jeff was really forever kind of the hippie at heart. And I was always getting on him. Now I realize I was always getting on him. He would blow in and he would just undo his bags and he would just dump his stuff, just to get up on the stage. And I used to think, good God, man, get it together. Your stuff is spread everywhere. And now I realize he was just excited to start making music.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just so, I realized where his head was at the whole time. He was like, okay, I just want to get up there and start doing it. But I was always on him for dumping his stuff everywhere. It was just hysterical. I really love bass and vocal. To me, it's the root of everything. And I always, it's kind of where I was always getting really grounded, listening to the bass. And of course, in a trio setting where it was just maybe vocal and piano and bass, it was something I've had to do a lot because of people's budgets and whatever, in lieu of having a drummer. But Jeffrey could do it all. He gave you, he could set up the rhythms. He just felt it all, whether it was upright or electric or whatever. And sometimes he'd go way out on the bass line, not unlike what you guys are talking about. And I'm like, what is going on? Give me some root, will you? And but when I really wanted just some basic support with the song, I could say to him, don't get fancy schmancy, just give it to me as straight as you possibly can. And it was never really straight, but always enjoyable. I think this would be a good segue for us to do, pull up the Bye Bye Blackbird video. Jeff was with me on all of my, 3 out of the 4 of my cabaret shows at the Salmon Center for the Arts. And I guess this was in 2016, we did a Julie London show. And this was a perfect example of the creativity that he showed while still, accompanying a vocalist. So this is kind of our version of Bye Bye Blackbird a la Julie London.
Well, thank you for staying around for the second set. When Julie first started singing, she just sang with her upright bass player. His name was Don Bagley. I have mine with me tonight, Mr. Jeffrey Eckels. We've performed this song probably as much as Julie and Mr. Bagley did. So here we go. Back up on my care and woe. Here I go, swinging low. Bye, bye, Blackbird. Where somebody waits for me, sugar sweet, so is he. Bye, bye, Blackbird. No one here loves or understands me. Ooh, what hard luck stories they all hand me. So make my bed, light the light. I'll arrive late tonight, Blackbird. Bye bye. No one here loves or understands me. Ooh, what hard luck stories they all hand me. So make my bed, light the light. I'll arrive late tonight, Blackbird. Bye bye. Blackbird, bye bye. Jeffrey Eckels, everyone.
That was great.
Yeah. Jeff was always he was always a flirt, and I told him, I told him, don't do anything strange on stage, just be normal, will you? Of course he couldn't, you know, he had to kiss me at the end. He's hysterical, but you know, it shows I think his creativity and his solos and how lyrical it was, you know, and then how much he came back and, you know, gave me the support that I needed, you know, when you're just doing a duo thing with bass. So it was really, really great. I'm hoping that Rosanna is still around, because I thought it would be great to segue their video, you know.
I'm looking on the second I don't see her
It's
here.
called...
I've got the video.
Okay.
I've got the video.
I think we should show it, because it shows a totally different thing. That's her original song, and they did this for the Tiny Desk for NPR.
Well, and the version, the version I have, and this is I like this one because it shows Jeff wanted to try different things on different songs, and he wasn't opposed to experimenting with things. And this isn't the final video. This includes a false start where he wanted to try something he thought didn't work, which I thought had he tried it one more time, I thought it worked great, actually. So we have the false start, and then we have the real version, and I thought this was really nice.
This is the Tiny Desk, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, this is so great.
We start on this one and go backwards this time.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Wake up! All right, there we go.
I think we just started right on this.
Yeah. Okay. we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Ah, shit, let's take two. Take two.
I know I've seen this thing before. Evermore, it's just the same. Love's a losing game, but now I know that love was in disguise. For my eyes have opened wide. When I look inside, it's like a lovely day to warm those clouds away. Funny how from winter comes spring and bloom. I know I've seen this thing before. Now I'll never see this thing the same way again.
Oh, that's it.
Uh-oh.
It's a short clip of
Oh, I
that.
guess so.
Though I do have, if anyone wants to see the full one in the YouTube list, the full version is on there, not the
Oh.
false start one.
Okay. I think that's where I saw it originally.
That may have been. William. Yeah, there's William. Hey, do you want to share the video of your original song you were talking about? I can pull that up if you'd like.
You want me to talk about that one or what?
If you want to talk some more about that, I have, like I told you earlier, I have the video with your original song, and then I have Almost Like Being in Love at ×10, whichever one you'd like to share
If you
and
want
say
to play
something.
the original tune, it's what is Sorpresas or Sorpresa?
Yeah.
That's from the Denton Jazz Festival.
All right. Let's pull that up.
Well, I have to say, not that this is not necessarily to set it up, but that, Jeffrey, as you all know, I mean, just the level of generosity that other people have spoken to. We would rehearse at his house a lot, and I'd have to say that almost every single rehearsal would be stopped a number of times because Jeffrey had an idea.
Yeah,
that's right.
I can see some laughs happening there. It's like, wait a minute, I have an idea. And my material often would have like roadmaps, 5-6 pages, and I had a limited amount of time to go through like 10 tunes. And Steve Barnes would be there and be like, Jeffrey, you're not the composer. Can we get, and it would just be this hilarious thing. And so I'd be cool with, like, I had to balance, because actually, to this day, there's certain ideas he's had that I've taken. I am open-minded to using his ideas, but there would always be a point where I'd say, Jeffrey, okay, we have to move on. But just that, we would go out to eat after rehearsals. He was the biggest fan of, I've never in my life, and can't anticipate until I die, ever having someone who was so excited, who would say things like, why aren't we touring Europe with this? Why, we need to book a place and just sell tickets, and I say, okay, we'll book the Iceman Center and hire security and lose our asses and 20 people will show. I mean, like, but there was this naivete he had, which was, it's part and parcel, that hippie thing people talk about, that was such a beautiful part of him, the socialist hippie who just would throw, like Carolyn said, just throw his stuff all over the place. It's 2 minutes to downbeat. Hey, Jeffrey, okay, I'll get your case off the stage, But just that amazing optimism and excitement. I would go home from rehearsal just feeling like totally amped up and excited because I had a cheerleader on my side. It almost makes me cry.
Yeah. Well, what you were saying, that's shown in that Starbucks video. He thought writing a song for Starbucks, putting it on YouTube, that Starbucks would find it and use it in a commercial, not considering that it goes through an advertising agency that picks it and it's got to be cut to a 29.5-second version. It's got to be cut.
Right. It might be the longest commercial.
But
it might be the longest commercial in the history of commercial music.
Yeah.
But it's a great tune.
It's perfect. Yeah. And he believed they would find it.
Yeah, so he was just, you know, just continually with ideas, just like it was endless. And I have to say, in all honesty, you know, like, and like, you know, when people at a funeral, because we doesn't look like what happened, when people share the good and the bad, and people are sometimes afraid to say the bad things, but there was a point when, this was what's amazing about him, is that I had to stop using him because there was just too much busyness happening at a certain point. And I think part of that was because music for him, when he played with it, was his blood, his oxygen, is how I put it. It, like, that's what brought him to life. And I don't know if we all knew how depressed he might have been afterwards. And I've suffered from depression, but there was a point where gig after gig, I'd be like, Jeffrey, you need to play less. Come off the high fretboard for 8 bars. I need some low notes. I need the ground. And then I just stopped using him. And then like 3 months later, I get an email. 4 months later, he says, I miss you. Let's have lunch. No anger, nothing. And then the bass player I was trying was like 6 months later from that. And it was like, he couldn't do the gig. I tried someone else and I thought, maybe I'll try Jeffrey. I called him up. I said, can you do the gig? And he was like, sure. Like, no animosity, no anger over not having used him. He came down to my house this time and rehearsed. He was amazing. And then I was like, yes, I've got him back. We're back in the groove. This is my main guy. He's been with me from the beginning. He was with me from the beginning, right after my divorce. And when I first started doing all my originals once a month, he was there.
Yeah. Sorry, can I jump in? Just this constant thinking and ideas. So I went to the International Society of Bassists convention in 2009, and he was there because he was always there. He was a fixture there. Everybody in that convention knew Jeff. And of course, it's one of these things where all the newest strings and amps and bows and all the bass gear was there. And every single table we went to, I remember we were at, like, I think it was Acoustic Image amps. And they were showing, well, we got this new thing and this new thing. It's like the highest tech, state-of-the-art bass gear. And Jeff, without missing a beat, he was like, hey, but on the foot switch, does the foot switch still click? It's too loud. I can't use it because it's too loud. You know? And every single vendor, he wouldn't even let them finish their spiel before he was like, hey, I got an idea. You know, you should make these strings, but you should do this. And you should do this mic, but you should do that. And this pickup doesn't do this, but, you know, and I mean, even bass cases and anything, you know, he didn't like the zippers and he thought the zippers could be better. And, you know, he always wanted everything to be perfect, whether it was music or anything.
That's good. Yeah, and you brought up something, William, I was going to talk about later, but since we're here, I think everybody that's a performer does this to get feedback from a crowd in some form. We may say we're doing it for the art of the music, but all of us enjoy that feedback from the crowd. In fact, early on, I think like April, I posted something about every Friday and Saturday between 7 to 10, the only thing that's changed in our life is at 7:45, 8:45, and 9:45, my wife has to clap for me just so I have that. Then I go on a 15-minute break. But Jeff was somebody, and I don't remember if it was right. So I was talking with this couple people about this. Jeff really was fueled by getting feedback and approval from the crowd. And I think that's something he missed greatly when he wasn't able to go out and play gigs. He loved people, he loved talking to them, but he also loved getting the positive feedback and reinforcement from the guys on the band and the crowd. And so it's interesting that you brought that up. We've delayed your song, William. You ready for us to play your song?
Sure.
All right.
One last little thing, I just would say that even though he had tons of ideas about things, I can think of, again, a superlative here. I never felt like an ounce or a speck of judgment. Like I could have a composer's like brain thing that I do sometimes where I just space and do a weird thing. And I know I played with a lot of great people in town, and it's not that they say anything, but musicians feel things when they're not said. I never felt that with him. He could play anything any other bass player could play, and yet I felt held, and it didn't matter how much I fucked up if I did fuck up. I mean, I felt like I could fuck up a lot, and it wouldn't matter. He would just have a smile on his face.
Even as a vocalist, same thing. I mean, I never felt belittled or stupid or anything, you know. All I felt was, okay, let's make music.
Support.
You know? Support, total support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's click, unclick all that. That's a great piece, William.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
It's always a little rough when in a concert. I don't know, not enough rehearsal, whatever.
Yeah, that's a challenging piece for everybody. Steven Anderson, I am glad you're here. You go way back with Jeff. I've got 3 videos here in the playlist. Let me scroll over there. I've got the trio Bye Bye Blackbird. I've got from the Dominican Jazz Project Salida. And then I have a live concert at University of North Carolina. Is there one that you'd like me to play or talk about?
Well, I mean, Jeff and I met him in 2001 at North Texas. In fact, I see Dan Hurney's on here. I'll never forget when, I think it was Jeff's first few days there. I was in the small group room, and Jeff came in to play for something. And I remember Dan Hurney saying, what are we going to do with this guy? Like, he was already like at such a high level. And he and I started playing in Dallas all the time for weddings, and we've just been some of the best of friends ever since. I'm at a university, at the University of North Carolina, where it's a publisher parish environment. You know, people talk about that like, oh, you don't want to be in that situation. To me, it's been a great blessing. Funding's been available. It's enabled me to bring out Jeffry. I brought him out for everything I can. We've done several recordings together. We've toured all the time. A few years back, I met this guy that used to come out here. We play from the Dominican Republic. And one night he said, I'd like to take you to my country. And I was like, cool, where is it? And he said, the Dominican Republic. And he did. And I started collaborating with some artists in the Caribbean. They're some of the finest players in that country. And anyway, long story short, I was playing at a few festivals down there, and I said, hey, I know this killer bassist. He's a gringo, but, you know, he can play all styles. And so Jeff got brought into that project, and I have just used him on everything. I brought him in town last February. We went down to South Carolina and did a tour. I mean, I brought him to my parents' house out in Utah. We've hung, we spent so much time together on the road and just had deep conversations about everything. We talked about all life's challenges, all the things that, you know, he's been through. For me, he was never too busy. You know, my charts that I write are pretty involved, and I used to write him a bass part like you're supposed to, and he said, hey, can you just let me see the score? So for the last number of recordings, I just write out a piano, like a global piano trio score. And he does that. He finds the melodies. I can remember one time in the studio, we were doing a project with Joel Fromm, the saxophonist, and like we isolated soloed just Jeffrey's part, and it's like this tune, and he's just going, and we're like, what the heck is he doing? But then he hit the button and took it out of the mode of like Jeff being soloed and everybody's back in. It just fit perfectly. And, you know, he just was that way. I never really told him much. Occasionally I'd say, on this one, I'd like this, you know, or I want this vibe. But, man, I sobbed like a baby for 2 days when I got that news, and like we all did. And now I'm just kind of numb, and I still think of him about 5 times a day, and I just wonder how I'm going to move forward. I was working with my artists from the Caribbean today. We're working on another project. Jeff was supposed to do 2 albums with me this year. He called me 2 weeks before he passed, and he's like, man, this COVID thing's getting me. He goes, I just really want to play. He goes, is there any way I can come out now? And I didn't have a way to bring him at that time. And I just said, Jeff, we're going to do this, man. I said, we might just have to be a little bit patient. And he didn't sound that down, but, you know, when we were planning on it. So anyway, I'm going to miss him more than just as a brother, as a closest of friends, and as a musical collaborator. You know, I just love giving him free reign to do whatever he wants, you know, and it's always beautiful. If you want to, I mean, if you want to see a happy vibe, you can see him with the tune Salida. You might fast forward in. There's a very long conga solo at the beginning.
Okay.
He's not like a featured artist as much on that one, but you see he's like, woo, you know, he's dancing and he's all happy. To me, it's beautiful. That's another thing that Jeff added to the bandstand, was just joy, you know. And sometimes, you know, when you're out touring, you're playing a lot, you're tired, but Jeff was always, yeah, wow, you know, it's just so animated.
True.
And, yeah, I'm gonna miss that.
I would like to just insert a small thing. It's funny. I was listening to one of your CDs on Spotify, and I was just like, oh my God! It's like it was such an amazing CD. I forget which one it was, and I was listening to Jeffrey playing, and I was going like, wow, he's not playing busy at all. It's like it was so perfect. Everything he played on, I forget which, it was a very involved CD, and I hadn't really heard a lot of your writing at that point. It was before I corresponded with you a little bit, and his playing was just dead on. And the solo he does in that live concert, Bye Bye Blackbird, I listened to that about a week ago, and the solo he took was just phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Stephen, what I have is the album version of Salida. Is that okay?
That's fine. Yeah, well, if you do the other one, you see him like all happy on stage. But
Well,
either
let me
one,
see
whatever you want to do.
The North Carolina live at UNC is a complete concert.
If you go to the very end of that one, that's the last tune.
Okay.
And then if
yeah, they're marked.
Fast forward in a couple minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe fast forward in a couple minutes there.
Okay. Let me let it get there. I'm going to pause because this is in our playlist and we're running late. We saw that was a great performance. We saw a touch of the classic Jeff head bob. And let me share maybe the greatest head bob version. Freddie Jones and Jeff and I are playing on a patio out in Fort Worth. This was the first time I ever heard Jeff play electric. But here's a little bit more of the famous Jeff Eckels head bob. And there it is.
Just to put 2 cents in here, the people at the Dallas Symphony, when he did the Pops concerts, used to call him the Bobber.
Yes.
Because he bobbed his head.
Hey, and we've had a lot of people come in since we started. Again, this is second episode of Jazz Explained, put on by the Dallas Jazz Piano Society. Typically, all donations on this show and our concerts go to our Keys for Kids Foundation. Today, all of the donations, and even if they're coming in later this week, let me share, are going to go to Jeff's family, and we've got a way to do that. So if you search on PayPal for Dallas Jazz Piano Society at gmail.com, you can give donations. Judy, our treasurer, will forward those to Melissa. If you need to pay in a different way than PayPal, email that address and talk with Judy, and she'll get your payment to Melissa. Just email Dallas Jazz Piano Society at gmail.com, and all of full donations are all going to Jeff's family tonight. One thing, yeah, let's talk about Jeff and technology. And you talked about some at the going to the bass clinics and all, but one thing, Jeff is one of 2 people I played with under 70 that refused to use a digital calendar on the phones, on the iPads. Because most of us, we go, oh, they want to book us for another date. You go in your phone, you go in your iPad, you make the change, you go, Jeff, can you play this date? He's, I got to go home. I've got the calendar up on the wall. I got to check there and write it.
That's what I was going to say. He didn't even have a physical calendar that he carried with him. It was
no, it was at home on his desk or on the wall. And then the other thing, and I hate that this happened, the past 3 years, I moved all of my library onto the iPad. So I've got thousands of songs, all the fake books, everything I'm doing on the iPad. And later on, I got a foot pedal. In fact, Bach Norwood got me a foot pedal where you tap the right side, it goes to the next page. You tap the left pedal, it goes to the page before. Before I had that, I brought Jeff in on a duo gig I was doing. And duo gigs are hard enough with one person doing bass and then I'm trying to cover everything else. I showed Jeff on the iPad. I said, okay, look, you tap here, it goes to the next page. You tap here, it goes to the page back. I even had like repeat signs if it had to go back 2 pages, or a DS or a Coda. You tap this, it will go back there. But if you tap in the middle of the page, it goes in this weird edit mode. And we're in like the second song, and he's just lost. And he said, can you do the page turns for me? So for most of 3 sets, I'd be playing, we'd get to page turn, I'd lift up both hands, I'd tap my iPad and his iPad to do the page turns and go back and play Tap the next page. Jeff was not always friendly with technology, and way back even, he didn't even like text. He just, because he liked people and he liked contact with people, he just wanted to talk to you. He said, no, don't text it to me. Just call me, tell me what's going on. Which is really an endearing thing more than anything. It just says that he appreciated people and talking with people and engaging with people.
Yeah.
Another class.
On that note.
Yes, please. While
on
I
that
pull
note,
this up.
If you were on a gig on a break or whatever, and people started getting on their phone, he'd be like, he'd chasing you.
Yes.
He'd say, "Come on, the action's right here. You know, if you want to dialogue there, not here." You know, I'll miss that about him too.
Yeah.
Sometimes things happen on performances that you have no control over, but when these do, we try to do it on the beat. So here's a classic Jeff moment at Stoney's with Steve Barnes again. Right on the beat, Jeff.
I was wondering if maybe Dan Hurley could share a story.
Oh, that'd be great if you have something, Dan. Any thoughts, Dan?
Need to unmute him.
There we go.
He needs to unmute.
Dan, you got to unmute. There you go.
Unmuted. Now
Thanks,
can you
Joe.
hear me?
Yeah.
I remember the year that Jeff came to school, and obviously a really talented player, and he heard about our having some small groups and special problems and so on. He said, "Is there any chance we could play together?" And I said, "Absolutely," you know. So I remember it was Jeffry and Stockton helping, and a guitar player named Gary Melvin, and we would meet, I think, twice a week. It was great. I mean, it's a luxury for me as a teacher to actually get together with people and play with people twice in a week. Wow. But we just did a lot of playing, and that was the year I retired, spring of 2002, and so I scheduled a concert with those guys since we've been playing together all semester. And oh yeah, I'd have to reinforce the story about Jeffrey offering suggestions for the arrangements. he did that really well, and a lot of good ones too, you know. But anyway, so we played a concert, and that was the last concert I did as a full-time faculty member at North Texas with Jeffrey and Stockton Helbing and Gary Melvin. And we played a bunch of fun music. He was always cheerful, upbeat, you know, a lot of fun to be with, and a lot of good music making. It was always a pleasant experience. He'll be missed.
And one thing we haven't talked about, Jeff loved Denton, and one thing that he always tried to do up there was find a residency, whether it was at, towards the last few years, Steve's Wine Bar at Mosaic. There was another house place, and Sergio talked about how he liked...
The White House.
The White House, yeah. He liked to bring in guests, and one person he brought in a lot, and this is somebody that I play with, oh my gosh, every month the past few years, is Ginny Mac. And this is a video of Jeff and Ginny doing the, we'll just play a clip of this, Jeff and Ginny doing Stevie Wonder As, and I wanted to share that.
Oh, cool.
There we go.
It's okay. This is right.
I think you're not sharing the screen, Mike. Mike.
He can't hear
Can
us.
you hear us? Uh-oh.
Hi, Enid.
Let's say hello to Enid.
Hi, Steve and Marianne and William.
Hello, Enid. I love your background. Did you move into the Alps in Switzerland?
Yep, yep. That's my house.
Hey, Dan. And Lynn, if he's here. Good to see everyone.
What are we doing?
Still not working.
No.
Good to see you too, Alexis.
Oh, hey, Lynn. And Carolyn, thanks for letting me know about this.
Yeah, you're.
Yeah, I taught with I taught with Jeff down in Ecuador in 2007, and we made an album together. And he's just such an amazing spirit and so much great work on my music. And also, we played together when I first started playing piano, and that same thing about not judging, and really making you feel like you were, valuable and what your musical statement was worth it, and having somebody of his caliber to reinforce that positive thought was really important for me at that time. Really great. Such a sweet.
I thought I recognized your name, Alexis.
Yeah.
I was going, where does that come from? And it's from Ecuador.
Alexis, you're a piano player and a singer, or?
I'm mostly a singer, but I play piano now almost all the time for myself. Yeah.
Oh, great. Where do you live?
I live in New York, and I teach at SUNY Purchase now, and I've been there for 7 years. Yeah.
Mike is enjoying it.
Mike is really digging it.
He's gonna laugh when he gets back on.
Enid shared a great front porch video of Jeff's that, if you get a chance, look at that on our YouTube playlist too. And that was, what was that, in April or May?
April.
Yeah, it was pretty recent. Is Dee Dee there? I know there was a few people with Dee Dee in the family. I don't know if they're still there.
Oh, well, yeah, good.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have to ask them to unmute.
Yeah, let's get her to talk.
Yeah. Let me see if I can unmute. There. Sorry to catch you in the middle of.
We love watching people eat, so please just continue.
I am so impressed and so grateful for the musical community that love my brother. I'm going to try really hard to get through this because I know he talks about each and every one of you and how positive and loving he was. The community that embraced him. He loved Denton. He loved his musical community. He loved UNT. He loved being part of each and every one of you and what you gave him. He was so blessed. And I'm sorry if I'm being a downer here because you guys have been and shared such delightful stories, which are so he was an extraordinary person, as much as an extraordinary musician. And he gave everything to his family and to his business. And my brother, by the way, is ringing the bells on my deck as I speak. And I'm just overwhelmed by the stories we have. And I could tell you many, many more about who he was. And I don't want to leave the story out about his children. His children were as important to him as his music. And he loved them beyond his music and his relationships were so special and meant so much. His musical gifts were part of each one of us. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for honoring him, because his music was everything. He lived for relationships with each one of you, his creativeness, his talk about my dad, who said the masterpiece he also loved. And he lived by that because he played. Loved.
Just trying to read the fine print.
Loved each one of you. And he loved each relationship with the music you gave him. I am so grateful. I miss him. But he talked about each and every moment that his music brought him. And we cherish him every minute, every moment I had with him. It was a beautiful moment of joy and compassion, and he never had a negative word ever. And he reminded me that constantly, that I should not see the world in a negative way. He loved you all so much. And I just thank you so much for doing this for Jeff. Because he was an artist and a bassist beyond what most people understand. And you understand who he was. I'm not going to go into the personal part. I want you to just remember him, the musician, and that you gave him, and that he gave you. And I just thank you so much for talking about him, sharing his musical life with me. And I'm sure his children will eventually understand this. His children came before everything, if you can imagine that. In spite of his talent, commitment, joy, his love, his children were the first thing in his mind, always. And his mother, who he cared for intimately, passionately, who loved him and was at all these gigs. You know, I'm sure many of you met her, you danced, and loved his music beyond belief. It was a huge who Jeff was. He cared, he loved, he belonged. And he loved all of you so much. I know most of your names. He talked to me. He knew you. He knew you well. And he knew what you did for him. He is a soul in heaven. And he's with his mom. But he looks and he wishes all of you a thank you for being a huge part of this. Dying from suicide is not an easy place for a human to go, especially with the love and caring he had from each and every one, and each and every family member. That he loves you, and he thanks you, and he's grateful, and he is finally at peace. And I think he's listening right now and just being so happy because he brought happiness, was joyful, never criticized, always appreciated. Was always thinking about how he could grow and become a better human being, a father, and a musician. And he had such a beautiful. Thank you for doing this. We are
Glad we could do it.
Yeah. Hey, Dee Dee, I bet Ryan, Sergio, everyone would agree. There was never a time I saw Jeff where he didn't have a story about the girls. Every time there was some story about something going on with the girls or that they'd done. He's the only musician I know I've ever met in 40 years that before he left the gig, either right at the end or the last break, he would call them and tell them when he's going to be home and that he loved them and he missed them and what was going on. Every single time. It was amazing. And I know Ronnie wants to say something. All of us that had the pleasure of meeting Lucille loved her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jeff would bring his girls to some of our gigs at the Hyatt because it was always Thanksgiving, Christmas, Mother's Day, and Lou would come, and when they were really small, and that was pretty amazing in itself,
Mike,
Thank you. This is Ronnie, and I did want to say I am Dee Dee's first cousin, so I was Jeff's first cousin, but I'm an older cousin. I'm already over 70, but they still tolerated me. I will say this has been delightful, just wonderful. He knows what's going on. He knows how much everyone appreciated him. It's been a very hard time for all of us, losing Lou and then losing Jeff. And thank you all for everything you've done for him over the years. It's just, I'm just amazed and so wonderful. And Dee Dee, you spoke really well. You did a good job, girl. Yes. And we haven't mentioned Steve, the other brother, who's also a talented musician, but different, and so fun that the whole family is very, not me, but everyone else, very talented. And lucky they knew all of you. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, everyone. I'm gonna archive this video if anyone wants to share it or see it in the future. I'll try to save it, put a link to it on Jeff's page,
Good.
on the Dallas Jazz Piano Society website, and then also on
nice.
our YouTube page, just so
Great.
anyone else that couldn't be here and wants to see it can. But thanks for spending a couple. Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. I have a story that I would like to share
Please.
before. It's about, we were talking about Jeff and his daughters, and there was one time when we had a gig with a Brazilian singer named Simone here in town. So it was a beautiful gig outside in Plano, downtown, where they have the lake and everything. And Jeff, every time he knew that he was gonna do a gig that his daughters would enjoy being there, he would bring them. So he brought Bobby, and I don't remember exactly how old she was, but she was still a little girl, really sweet. And Jeff set up everything, and we were about to start, and he said, "I'm gonna go and buy Bobby some ice cream." And I told him, "Jeff, we're starting in 10 minutes. Might be a little bit risky, there is a lot of people here." And he goes, "No, I think I still got some time." So they went to have some ice cream, and of course something happened there, and it was full of people buying ice cream or whatever. So we had to start the gig, and he wasn't there, and we all knew, because this is something that we all know. He was very professional. He was always not only on time, he was always set up and ready to go early, and he would make sure that everything was the way he wanted to be. But so he didn't show up at the beginning, and then Simone looked at me and she said, "We need to start." It was I don't remember, maybe a City of Plano gig or something. We had to start on time. So we started playing this. It's a bossa nova originally, this Jobim tune called Ela e Carioca, and it's a very nice, happy song, And we started playing, me, the drummer, Efren Guzman, and Simone, we started playing with Jeff. And then halfway, we were playing the first song still, and then he came in with Bobby, and Bobby had this huge ice cream, and she was really happy. And Jeff, instead of doing what everybody else would have done, which is just, getting there pretty stressed and say, "I'm sorry," he just came in slowly, and he walked. There were some stairs, and we were playing on the top of the stairs. And he came in, he walked the stairs like this was something meant to be. And it was like one of those Disney movies, like The Beauty and the Beast or something. I'm not saying that he was the Beast and Simone the Beauty, but it was just so beautiful. And he came up the stairs, and he offered his hand to Simone, and he started dancing with her. And he danced the whole song. And he looked at me and cued me like, "You should end this." So I finished the song, and then he and Simone, they bowed to the audience, and then he came in and took the bass like nothing happened. And then he looked at me and he said, "How was it?" And I just said, "Jeff, it was perfect." So I think that sums up a little bit of our memories, I think, with Jeff.
That's good.
So it's just a lesson on how we have to, we get sometimes stressed about what we do because we take it very seriously, but we cannot lose that joy that we have for music and for playing music. So
he wanted his the last gig I did with him was my original thing was in March 8th, and I had an opera song. I brought in this amazing opera singer. Only had a couple days to prepare, and we were about to start the piece, and he said, "No, my daughters are not in the room. They must have been outside in the back." We were talking about his daughters, and I was like, well, Jeffrey, we have to start. He said, wait, I got to let me find where my daughters are. And there's like the room is full with all these people. And I was like, okay. And anyway, we had to wait till it was beautiful that he really wanted them to hear this, because they had been out before, but they'd never heard something like this, I guess, or something. And it was really beautiful and then they came in and we could start.
On the topic of his daughters, one quick thing. I know you're trying to end. So some of you probably helped him get that gig in Nebraska where he was teaching for a while. It should be remembered that he had a full tenure track gig for 1 year, and I helped on that one. I made phone calls when they were looking at him, and he got there and he was going crazy because he wasn't gigging as much as usual. But the real reason he left that gig was because he couldn't stand to be away from his daughters.
Yeah.
And he just loved them so much. And that was quite I'll say the word sacrifice, to turn down a great gig like that, just to go back and be back in Denton and live the life of a freelancer. So anyway, I was always impressed by that. And everywhere we were, he would always call his daughters and make sure that he had a good phone call with them before he ended every day. He's a great dad.
Nice way to end.
That's a great way. Thanks again to everyone for joining us tonight. What we were originally going to talk about tonight, we're going to do second Monday in August. Frederick Sanders and I are going to talk about music from Dallas, and it'll be the second Monday. I think that's the 10th at 7 o'clock. Watch for the archive of this one. This was just a great celebration of Jeff. I'm glad everyone that joined us, especially Stephen, William, everyone else that we weren't sure, didn't expect. This was great. Thanks again, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank
Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.